But I need to get some peace of mind. Much normie socializing. It's really, actually, it's a bit of a drain in several manners, in several capacities. But all right, John 6:15. This is a video for you. For you. So basically, false idols / idol worship. So there's the thing about the golden calf, right? There's the thing about the idea of worshiping a golden calf in the lore, in the tradition, in the ancestral story of my people. There is a tale of a golden calf being worshipped, and this was seen as a bad thing. All right, so I'm just gonna sort of ramble here and see where my mind takes me, and see if I jump to any conclusions that I didn't already see, and just first sort of lay out all the information on the table for myself, just sort of mentally unpack it all. This is my first time thinking about it, having a big internal conversation about this like this. But I think better when I think best when I'm talking to another person, but I think I think better, at least if I'm alone, when I'm talking to myself. So anyway, or sort of talking out loud to myself like this. So anyway, all right, let's begin. So, the sacred bull, or the heavenly bull, or the celestial bull, or the divine bull. All right, so I am not talking here about the Indo-European cow, or the Indo-European bull, or aurochs, or really that tradition, because there are lots of there's the culture around cows in the continent, in South Asia. There's the culture around cows or horses, or sorry, not horses. I guess just sort of like bison type cow-like animals in the there are like tradition of that in Europe. Like there are aurochs cave paintings in France that are domesticated. This is not Indo-European. This is far earlier than that. But the point is, there's lots of bull mythology, cow mythology, but I'm specifically talking about Near Eastern cow mythology, stuff that would be around the time and place and context of the bull worshipping scenario. And even if it's a bit later or a bit earlier, I'm just sort of trying to get the vibe of what a bull deity might represent. Okay, because it's like, there's the bull, or the heavenly bull, or whatever it's called, the like cow of heaven, or the bull of heaven, in the Epic of Gilgamesh, right? And the Gilgamesh bull is like this, basically like this kind of this trophy cow of heaven. And I think, if I recall correctly, it's killed. It's killed, I think, by Gilgamesh. I might be misremembering this, but the point is, okay. So, yeah. And then later, so I'm, of course, a lot of the information I'm getting right now is I was literally just looking. I looked up sacred cows and sacred bulls online, and I took out a book earlier today for my university library, which is a really good one, on sacred cows. So I'm getting a lot of my information, or what it is like sacred cow symbolism. But the thing is, there's sections for each of the sort of Near Eastern cows, so I'm getting a lot of this information from there. And in the book, they were talking about, I think this was true for Sumerian, so this would be kind of like Gilgamesh time period, and like Akkadian and Assyrian and kind of like Babylonian and like that type of stuff. The cow was like this. It was like the sun moon thing. It was sort of it was like something that tied between the heaven and the earth. And this is another thing. This is another piece of symbolism. Like cow is like something that connects between heaven and earth, because like this, and this might be, I don't know if the Apis bull is like applicable to the what do you call it? I don't know if the Apis bull is applicable to the the bull worship scenario, because I don't know how much actual contact there was between the Egyptians and the Hebrews. But I think that the Apis bull, if we're looking at the Apis bull, if I recall correctly, Apis bull is basically, it's a cow that's sacrificed. And there's this big elaborate ceremony where the cow is sent off to the realm of the dead, and then I think the cow is resurrected. It's like a sacrificial offering. So again, it's like, what is it? It's about sacrificial offering, which is, the concept is, like, let's think about sacrificial offerings. It could be a concept of like food or charity, or like giving oneself up. It could be like a human sacrifice or like a life sacrifice. It could be like the scapegoat idea, sort of like, which is, or like, this is sort of like a classic kind of like West Asian mythology trope of like, there's this animal that you cast out, you know, the badness onto. So it could be like a little bit of that there involved. But hello, Scorsese, come to New York and kick it with me. But I think that the point is, if you're looking at the Apis bull and comparing it to the golden bull, it's again kind of like what you see in the other mythology. It's something that ties earth, something that like, it's like this thing that like straddles earth and heaven. It's kind of like this celestial, it basically, it has a there's kind of like the offering trope, and like the sacrifice trope, and then there's kind of like the bringing luxurious goods into the afterlife trope, also kind of being invoked there with the funeral procession of the Apis bull. And later Apis was merged, I think, to Serapis, which is a fusion of Apis and I think something that starts with an S. I don't remember what it is, but that's a Greek one, right? That's a Greek bull deity. Greek bull deity. Or some sort of thing. And there was like a cult, and the cult, I think the cult kind of like started with Greeks because they fused their deity with the Egyptian deity. But I'm not sure how, like, to what extent the cult actually like kind of like existed in Egypt. But I think that there was like this, they're like Hellenic, and then there are other like Hellenic bull cults. Then there's also association, and this is going kind of like from pure autism, but there's like these vague associations I've seen with like both Y-DNA and mtDNA markers, as well as sort of like autosomal DNA kind of like clusterings from sort of Near Eastern farmers that are in some of those waves of Near Eastern farmers related to it, either largely or in some capacity, modern day Levantines. So there's another interesting thing going on there. Basically, so you have this, again, there are like bull cults, and again, it all seems like it's sort of like, it's more material thing. Like in those you'll see these ancient paintings, and it'll be a bunch of people like circling a bull, basically. A bunch of humans like circling a physical bull. So it's like, what's going on there. I don't know what would be going on in the context there, but the point is, also another thing to make note of is the fact that although there were these bull cults, the bull deity is not like the main deity. Like the bull, like the heavenly bull or whatever, was I think a possession of the gods, or within Sumerian lore. Not sure about that, but yeah, if I'm recalling, like, or Epic of Gilgamesh, Sumerian, or, oh, geez, my memory on this is really bad. But basically, like, literally, I was leafing through a book, like, this morning that I took out. But, yeah, okay, so you have this bull figure. You have this bull figure. And it's not really a main deity. Like Apis or the Apis bull, again, it plays like a side role. Again, and the role it plays is this thing. It's like there are tropes of reincarnation, there are tropes of like bridging between the physical world and the divine world. And again, you have, like, as Spengler would say, like this kind of like Magian concept. Yeah, prep the bull figure. Yeah, exactly. Hello, Balkanized. But yeah, you have this kind of like separation, I guess, this kind of like Magian big distinction between like the divine realm and the earthly realm. And then, of course, like, you have like a magical object or a magical being, entity, kind of. And for that, it's the concept of, for that, it's like you have this bull. Okay, so my thoughts are really, really incoherent right now. I'm having a hard time organizing them. But it's like, okay, let's see, bull tropes. It's not the main deity usually. It's a fairly kind of like material thing. It's like about an actual physical bull when it is like a bull cult per se. And when it isn't like a bull-centered cult, which is most of the time, it's like this, It's like a secondary deity, and and then again you have the reincarnation tropes, and then you have the tropes of bridging earth and land. And there's, so like you'll have the sun, you'll have like the moon bull in one, I forget which tradition it was, but you'll have the moon bull, and the moon bull keeps the moon bull, like its horns, the moon, and the bull is associated with the moon, and this is in one sort of West Asian tradition. And in another, it's like there are two bulls day and night, and they keep the sort of cycles going around. So again, bull bridging celestial realm and terrestrial realm. So that's what you have as the bull. So we're talking about worshiping a golden calf, right? And like, what could the symbolism be? Now another thing well, it's a golden calf. Okay, it's a golden calf. When you're looking at the bull cults, the calf isn't golden. Like if was it the Etruscans? No, I don't think so. But there are groups of people who actually bear genetic similarity to some current and older West Asian groups who were in Italy, or some degree of genetic similarity, who were in Italy or ended up in Italy, and they had the bull thing. And then of course you have the Minoan bull worship, which is I think the classic one where you see a lot of bull imagery. Now golden bull, in none of these the bull is golden. I think the idea of a golden bull is something that may be specific to Judaism, or there may be something about the Apis bull being golden. I don't know. I'll have to check that later when I get back home. Anyway, okay, so you have this bull. Now, one thing where it's easy to say is like, okay, idol worship, right? It's like, idol worship isn't actually literally like, oh, bowing to a bull. It's like, idol worship is actually like the worship of money. It's materialism, in the sense of materialism not being, in materialism in both senses, actually, in kind of like the spiritual, philosophical, I like conception of reality, like metaphysical sense, but it's also material, but it's also materialism in the sense of like, here's a physical thing. Like a bull is something that's domesticated by humans, right? I think the bull was domesticated from the aurochs, if I recall correctly. So it's like, humans have this relationship of domesticating the bull. The bull, in a way, is kind of something that is subservient to the human, or has thing. Like a bull is like a resource, like an asset. Like it gives you milk. It gives you, you can trade it. You can use it as bartering leverage. It's like dowry for your wife. Some sort of to like pull like the pretty advanced irrigation in like the ancient Levant and somewhere around that region, places around that region as well. So a bull is like a material asset, right? You have the material asset of the bull. A bull can also, obviously it'll pull your wagon, and I think maybe, can you ride a bull? I don't know. Can you prep a bull? I don't know. All right. Hello, White Nibber. Hello, Duvid. Hello, Balkanized Yesterday. Hello, Scorsese. Duvid, yes, I would actually love to do a juice stream tonight. I'll start it when I go back home, but right now I'm ranting about bulls in Central Park. I agree, Duvid. We need a stream for just Jews to discuss the current issues. None of these filthy goyim. Am I right? No, I kid. Universal Brotherhood of Man, but we need a Jew HQ. Because the funny thing is, there are two things that, we need a safe space. It can be like Norvin's situation. I don't know. Hail cows. Duvid, about what time? I'm not sure what time. But once I'm done this video, I'll head home immediately. But I'm just going to rant about cows for a little bit longer in the park. All right, so let's see. What am I going to say? What was I talking about? Bulls. So, the golden calf. And again, like I was saying, like you have this calf. Like a calf is like a material asset in a way. So it's like this sort of material thing, but it's also, in mythology, it's the thing that bridges heaven and earth. It's not like the main deity. Like main deities are more like anthropomorphized deities generally, or semi-anthropomorphized deities, in a sense. Like for instance, the Apis bull. I don't think if I'm not sure exactly how ancient Egyptian worship of gods worked. Like I'm not exactly sure. Did people have like individual people have their own god? Was it like sort of regional? Was it, I really honestly don't know. What, was it like different, like different towns, each kind of province had their own god, like you had like Sparta and Athens and whatnot, but I really don't know how it was in ancient Egypt. with this stuff. But to my knowledge, like the Apis god wasn't like a central figure. Okay, so point is bulls, cows. Yeah, I mean, I said this stream was just going to basically be like me ranting. Like right now I'm just sort of like bloviating and talking to myself to sort of get a clearer picture of the situation. Okay, it's really tempting to say, well, idol worship is like, yeah, idol worship is worship of money, worship of like assets, worship of status, worship of power, worship of, and these things, what are we talking about? We're talking about lust, we're talking about pride, you know, worship of, you know, vanity, we're talking about worship of, what do you call it? Worship of like possessions, you know, that's greed, that's avarice, that's another one. You have like worship of, you know, the material world in ways like lust, that's like for power and sexual pleasure. You have envy, that's another thing. You have I mean sloth, I'm not sure how sloth would fit in, but like let's say you're a rich man and you have a whole fleet of oxes, you know, and you know you're not going to sloth, you're a rich man with a fleet of oxen, you know, you'll grow, you'll become, you know, your children will have this late empire decadence, you know. I'm imagining like this sort of like nouveau riche ox herder in the Middle East who sort of goes soft and doesn't raise his children with the proper values because he doesn't. In ancient times, of course, like I'm picturing this in a while ago. All right, I'm thinking. So yeah, there, I think I've made a connection basically, obviously, like one of my friends growing up. But he, I mean, you know, they didn't really have a subsequent religion. For him, like there were, in the part of India he comes from, there were like Sikhs and Muslims around there. But like, I guess what I'm really talking about is indigenous European religion practitioners and indigenous Near Eastern religion practitioners, but there aren't really any of those who take it seriously. Like there aren't a lot of, you know, like people of Hebrew descent or Arab descent or Assyrian descent doing it. I mean, there's some Zoroastrians in New York City, but that's its own thing. The point is the stream cutting out? Bull worship. Let's see. So the way I've heard it explained to me by indigenous European religion practitioner types, like, you know, like the Norvins and the Travises and the Balders and but also like the Survive the Jives of this world. And a lot of interesting people there, a lot of really smart people, a lot of people who are sort of lost, and some people who are more emotive, but there's a whole range of, you know, pagans, indigenous European religion practitioners. They're just like you and me, don't discriminate. You've offended the heifer. Yeah, you've defended the divine heifer, pray see. But, you've offended the heifer, I love it. But, what was I saying? Yeah, the way I've heard it described to me is like, each god kind of represents like a different part of the self. Like, you know, let's say like Ares or Mars, if I recall correctly with the names, is like, he represents like the warlike part that it's like, yeah, I think if I recall correctly, like he was like the patron deity of like Sparta, or was that only true with Athena and Athens? Like, I don't know. But the point is, like, he was like he was this dude, sort of. He was like this, sorry, great commentary here. He represents the warlike aspect within humans, you know, but like that is a kind of like, it's a human part of humans, you know, in a sense. They aren't like gods, they aren't like these perfect gods, you know, they're flawed gods, and, you know, they'll fly down to earth and like have sex with a human woman. Yeah, Luke's on, I'm going to conclude this in a sec. Have sex with a human woman, like in the form of a goose, or they will do something along those lines, basically, and they'll have, you know, jealous rivalries with other gods and whatnot. So basically, you have these very human gods, and again, this is like, as Spengler put it, like the Apollonian conception, the man god, basically, which is why, like, some might say, if they're looking at it from a Spenglerian lens, like Jesus Christ is like the fusion of like the Magian and the Apollonian to a degree, maybe. But then you also have like what do you call it? You have yes, so you have these like flawed gods, these very human gods, and this is another aspect of like polytheism. Is like gods can represent the. This is probably something also that like has always existed, you know, to some degree, and like maybe it's like northern Mediterranean, but it's still like probably a reference point that like existed to some degree for like West Asians, perhaps. Maybe I'm just completely drawing a blank here, or like not drawing a blank. I don't know. The point is, I think that yeah, you have again like the human, you have like the imperfect God within polytheism as reference point, which should also be taken into account when we're talking about like a bull god as well. Like maybe it's not a perfect God. It's not, as like Maimonides would put it, like there's also this beautiful thing going on. Like I'm not sure what happened. It's kind of tragic, but it's kind of beautiful. There's also this kind of Maimonidean conception of like, you know, he described it as like God is so incredibly far removed. It's like this light, you know, it's just like this thing. It's like you cannot describe it. Like any attempt to quantify God will invariably fall flat. So, and compare that to, you know, the jealous and envious and wrathful and you know, they're jolly and they're wise and they're good, but they're also, you know, like drunkards or lechers, just like humans are. So again, you know, I think that this is something interesting, you know, to be taken into account with polytheism. Again, look at, you know, like the bull god, again, bull, connection between earth, celestial realm, and earth realm as this kind of like perennial bull concept in this context, at least. Regional perennialism. You have that, you have the, you have the bull, sort of like the bull connecting heaven and earth. You have the sort of bull as an object, bull as something that like and then you also have the bull as the sacrifice, and the sacrifice that takes with it, you know, material possessions to the afterlife in this illustrial grand parade, and also something that is revived and resuscitated. It's reborn, which again is an interesting thing going on there. So yeah, that's the end of my rant. Like make idols real. It's like, yeah, you know, like we have idols today. It's like it's like, yeah, we have idols today, you know, the idol of ego, the idol of money, the idol of status, the idol of lust, the idol of hedonism, other sorts of physical pleasure, the idol of power, etc., etc. So yeah, that concludes this video. Let's see, hold on. Someone says based gods hail Zeus, it makes them spicy. Yeah, I'm gonna go watch the Luke Ford show, and I will talk to Duvid also when I get home. I'm gonna walk there and starting now.